Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my new video where we are going to make you a better Senna player. So, my goal around this entire channel is to make you a better League of Legends player. I also add timestamps up in the top of the thing, so if you want to skip this intro, if you want to skip a certain tip, it will have a start time for the next one. If you want to contact me directly with any questions, you can hit me up with the Discord link that's going to be in the pinned comments, or hit that bell button and I will answer your questions live when I stream here on YouTube. Also, I heavily encourage you guys to add your own tips for Senna. I really like to see when you guys try and help each other out, and I also learn a lot from you guys as well. So if you have any really cool, interesting off-meta builds or very good tips, make sure to comment those down below. And with that out of the way, let's get into the first tip. Alright, and jumping into tip number one, I want to talk about what I think is one of the most important things to understand when you are playing Senna. And this is really where she excels quite heavily, and that is in really big choke points. Whenever you have an extremely ability-based champion like Senna that isn't just super based on auto attacks and beating people down with consistent damage, and more about throwing out AoE abilities that are looking to do root with your W, or maybe a heal and damage with your Q, and then a shield or a damage with your R, you really want to look to take fights that are around condensed areas, because you will be able to hit multiple targets and you will increase the overall effectiveness of your kit by hitting several champions. If you didn't know, with the root, it is an AoE root that once you hit a target, it can hit several people and really set up for quite a huge ultimate, or for your teammates to follow up with getting that really big AoE root is going to be extremely strong. Also, hitting several people with the piercing darkness is going to be extremely strong as well. So always look for team fights that are around these condensed areas, and look for turnarounds if you are getting chased and you are leading the enemy into some of your allies to turn around when you hit one of these types of areas. There are really a large amount of choke points that are throughout the map. Usually they are around the jungle, so always look to take fights when you are ahead and you have even numbers in the jungle, as your kit is really going to excel quite heavily when you have a lot of enemies in a condensed area and you have quite a few allies around. And that will wrap up tip number one. Alright, and getting into tip number two, if you are playing her in the bot lane as a support or an ADC, I want to go over a couple different ways you can look to extend your Q. As you can tell here, the range of your Q far excels the ability of you to range it. As you can see, the circle right here is as far away as you can target a particular champion, but is extended behind the enemy champion. So using minions like this to extend the range and hitting the target behind it is going to be rather important. If you've ever played Lucian before, this is going to be extremely evident. But a little bit more of an advanced take on that is if you are playing with a partner, if you're playing with a duo that is maybe an ADC or a support, and they're really looking to help you land more Qs and more poke, which are going to be huge in the early game as this has a decent amount of base damage, you can work with them to extend the range and use your ally to extend the range right there. I mean, this is just going to be an extremely good way where both of you can work together to hit those backline targets while staying out of their threat range, which is so extremely important. If you did not know, that is why champions like Caitlyn are lane boys, is because they have such extremely long range. And with Senna's kit being extremely long range as well, you want to take full advantage of this. The last thing you want to do is always just be looking for trades. I mean, not even at your max range would be probably the worst way to take trades when you are playing Senna. So make sure to take advantage of your strengths, which are range, poke, and a little bit of sustain. And that will wrap up tip number two. Alright, and for tip number three, I want to go over a really basic kind of burst combo that you can look to do to really take someone out of the team fight, as a lot of players do like going the lethality build when they are playing Senna. How you want to look to take a really bursty trade would be, first you would want to start it with an auto, throw out your W, auto, Q, and then right as the Q is finished and the auto is done, you want to press R, and that is when the root is going to hit. You want to make sure before you commit your R that you did hit confirm your W. So just do that. I'm going to do it one more time real quick for you guys. So auto, throw your W out, auto, Q, R, and then your R is going to come up right as the enemy is rooted, so they are not going to be able to dodge it or flash away because they are rooted. So just kind of take this as a really basic trading pattern you can look to do to burst someone out. Maybe you're playing with an ADC like Draven and you're supporting. Getting that much damage off an enemy where they have like 100 or 200 damage Level before they die can be very effective for getting him his cash-in gold, or for just getting your ADC ahead and forcing your enemy back in lane. Now your R is a rather long cooldown because it is a global, but forcing an enemy out of lane is going to be so extremely strong. They're going to be missing CS, they're going to be missing experience, and it's going to really put you far ahead and allow you to snowball without necessarily having to get kills on the enemy. And that will wrap up this tip. Alright, and getting into tip number 4, I want to talk a little bit about itemization and runes. Let's jump into runes first, as there are several different ways you can look to approach this, and it is really dependent on matchup. There isn't like this really clear consensus where it's like, oh, Jax last season where you had to do the Conqueror setup and you had to have the certain secondary rune setup. You want to look at the enemy team in general and how you are going to be playing out the lane. The reason why I really like Summon Aerie on Senna is because I play a very aggressive lane, whether I'm supporting or ADCing. I like to take a lot of really quick auto trades with Senna because she has extremely long range, and you're able to just get a quick amount, a little bit of extra damage, and then also get that shield in those trades with your Q in the Summon Aerie, or if you're healing your ally that is trying to get away. It just is a great all-around rune for different picks. But if you're a hyper aggressive player and you want to go an extremely heavy scaling route, you're in an elo that the games last really long, try out a rune like Dark Harvest. That can be a great pick. If your team needs a little bit more utility out of you, something like even a Glacial Augment can be okay. I've seen a couple pros using Guardian as well. Or I mean, there's just so many different ways you can look to play out the rune set. Just kind of fool around, try and figure out what really suits your playstyle the best. If you're taking a lot of early trades, or maybe you want to take the Gathering Storm because your games last really long. If you want to be really CDR heavy, if you are running out of mana because you're taking a lot of trades, if the enemy team has a lot of tankiness, if you want a bit more attack speed, there's just so many different ways to play Senna out, and you can really just adapt to the situation, which is going to be extremely important. Whether it is runes or whether it is items, it's going to be extremely important to understand what your team needs. If they have a lot of burst damage but not a lot of continuous damage, and you're a little bit behind, something like Athene's, which is a little bit of a cheaper option with the overall items you can pick up at 2100, being a bit cheaper than some of the lethality items by quite a margin. You can really finish an item for 800 gold less and be in a decently strong spot. If you are getting zero help with wards, I think Umbral is just an absolutely perfect item that I think was built almost for things like Senna and like Pike. So make sure to adapt your build to what you're going. I did see that the Muramana build is kind of making a little bit of a comeback, or not a comeback, but it's starting to become a little bit of a meta item for the actual carries when you're playing Senna and not supporting, because she can get quite mana heavy with her 110 mana cost. So again, you really want to look to be adaptive. You want to kind of flow with your build and with your rune setup to what your team needs and what your enemies, what would put them in the absolute worst spot, and put yourself in the absolute best spot. If you have any questions about builds in certain situations, I'd love to help you out. You can check out the Discord in the comments down below, or you can hit the bell button for when I go live on stream, and I'd love to chat about builds with you. Alright, and that will wrap up this tip. Alright, and jumping into the final tip, I want to talk about one of the most underutilized abilities when playing Senna. In lower elo, I see people using this extremely poorly. So that's why I really wanted to hammer down just my opinions on the E and how you can really effectively use them. The first thing I want to cover heavily is when you're playing support, the power of your E is absolutely insane with the Aerie. As you can tell by how much you get from the shield of your Aerie, it is around 200 with a pretty basic type of build. So as you can see, I'm going to apply it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. If they stay in the shroud that entire time, that is going to be around 800 shielding in the late game when you are level 18 and you have a decent build. So you really want to utilize this E as a really strong defensive, because it's going to give movement speed and an insane amount of shielding if you are running Aerie. Also, you can look to use it as a engage type of ability, as it is going to give your allies a movement speed increase. If you have something like an Alistair, Leona, Nautilus, just like a bunch of things that are looking to run at the enemy, make sure that you can speed them up and get into an even better position where they can land even more people in their engage. So you want to look at this as both an offensive and a defensive tool and use it accordingly to what your team needs. If you're absolutely slaughtering the enemy team, you're just destroying them, and you just need to get closer to the enemies, and you just want to use it as like a pseudo Shirelius. It's not going to be as much movement speed, but will give enough movement speed to catch the enemy. So if you're in a little bit of an even game state, you want to kind of look at the ebb and flow of the battle and where it is going to be needed the most, because it is a rather long cooldown. You're probably going to only get one off in the team fight that's going to be effective, maybe two if it's very prolonged. And then obviously when you're really behind, you want to use it as a little bit of a disengage tool. Being Senna, you do not always want to be in the front line, so helping your back line kind of kite around with it can be a very effective way to play out your E. And that is going to be my final tip for the video, guys. If you have any questions for me, as always, you can hit me up in the comments down below, or just hit that bell button and you can talk to me live on stream. And as always, take it easy.